Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to 1 Chronicles chapter 22, in which there are 19 verses. Beginning in verse 3, we read, doors and the gate versus doors of the gates. So we have nails being prepared for two distinct areas, the doors and the gate, again separate, whereas the Masoretic combines them. Verse 5, we see Solomon described as a tender child versus young and tender. For superior magnificence, for a name, versus exceeding magnifical of fame. So we see the emphasis on the name, Hashem, the reputation versus the fame, which can also be reputation, but not so much relating to the name itself. Verse 7, heart versus mind. Verse 8, carried on great wars versus made great wars. So the Septuagint is talking about how King David continued great wars versus King David started new wars. Verse 9, the word shall, talking about a son shall be born to thee. Now the footnote reads in the Greek is, so a son is born. It's not a messianic prophecy, as I was having an open mind to. So this is not messianic. In verse 10, it seems like it, however, because it does talk about his throne being established. I will establish the throne of his kingdom in Israel forever. So does that mean King Solomon's throne is forever, or does that mean that his name, his legacy will be enshrined among the kings of Israel forever? That's another possibility as well. Or is this simply hyperbole? Verse 12, prudence versus understanding. Strengthen thee over Israel versus give thee charge concerning Israel. So the difference here is that he would strengthen you in energy, in terms of energy, vigor, etc., versus give you authority. But we already know he has been given authority. Both to keep and to do the law versus that thou mayest keep the law. So again, two different things in the Septuagint. To keep the law and to do the law are different things. To guard the law is different than just performing it. Guarding it means you're more vigilant. It means it's really in your heart that you are taking precautions. To simply keep the law is to guard it, but doesn't mean you're doing it. Those are two separate things. Verse 13, will he prosper you versus shall you prosper? So we see the distinction here is in the Septuagint, Hashem is the one who is prospering. He is the one who is enabling him to prosper. He will prosper you. Then will he prosper thee. Okay, so that was inserted. I have to make sure that is clear. So that was inserted versus shall thou prosper. So again, the emphasis is on he, who is Hashem, prospering, doing the prospering. He is the source of the prosperity. In the Masoretic, Solomon is simply prospering by his own power. You will prosper. There's no acknowledgement of Hashem being the one, the source of that prosperity. Commandments versus statutes. Terrified versus dismayed. Now, dismayed can mean disappointed, but let's just look this up just to be certain. Terrified seems a lot stronger to me, but to be dismayed, again, is like disheartened, disappointed. Let's see what it says here. be shattered, be broken, be afraid, to cause to be dismayed. Okay, so it is a lot more relating to fear. So it seems to be very close in meaning. So I stand corrected. Verse 14, I according to my poverty versus I in my trouble. So it seems a lot more of a hyperbole in the Septuagint. It seems like an expression, an idiom that would be used in that time. For example, Abraham, when he hosted the two angels on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah, he said, just have a morsel of bread, but ended up serving them a feast. Do thou command, where is that? Do thou command versus thou mayest. So that is verse 14. Oh, here, do thou add to these. So you do this, it's a commandment, versus you may add thereto. So perhaps you will, if it's up to you. Verse 15, again, do thou add. So add workmen, versus moreover, there are workmen. So it is a status update, simply stating, okay, you have this number of workers, but no instructions to add to the workforce and build it up. Verse 17, chief men versus princes. Verse 18, there's an addition of your Elohim. He has given you rest versus has he not given you rest? So one is a statement, the other is a question or a rhetorical question, to be more specific. He has given into hands versus he has given the inhabitants into mine hand. So the Septuagint is referring to Solomon, perhaps, because it is, I believe, David charging his chief men, and then he said, help Solomon, saying, okay, so he's speaking to his men, okay, into your hands, talking about David's men. Okay, so that is a mistake on my part. So David's men versus he has given the inhabitants into mine hand. So that is David. Verse 19, hearts and souls versus heart and soul. And then there's an addition of Hashem, the name there, right here in that section. So that's all for this chapter. Thank you very much for your time. Until next time, I bid you all Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum, Irini Mazisu, Pax Vobiscum, peace be unto you, and Maranatha.